It is time to talk about why you should use IDP in your Dynasty leagues instead of team defenses. In case you didn't know, IDP stands for Individual Defensive Players. But before we get started, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel to make sure you catch more videos just like this one and help you win your fantasy leagues. All right, Kyle, let's get into it. Why is IDP the way to go?
Man, for Dynasty, it just makes so much more sense because as a whole, team defenses change so much from year to year that it's impossible to roster team defenses in Dynasty. Like one year you've got the top defense, the next year you've got defense 24. It's silly. It's goofy. IDP, you go in, there's some consistency, especially at the top from year to year in who are your top individual defensive players. And depending on the way your league is set up, the scoring, maybe it values big plays more. So your corners and your defensive linemen who are getting sacks and things like that, maybe they're more valuable. Maybe it's a league that values tackles more. So your linebackers are going to be your studs. However it is, individual defensive players is the way to go in Dynasty. Not to mention it gives you more pieces to play around with when you're trading, which is what Dynasty's all about.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another point there is it gives you more pieces to play with, like you said, in trading, but also it kind of separates the skill between players within your league too, right? So it adds another element. There's a lot of offensive players out there that can fill out rosters and stuff, and it's getting deeper and deeper with 2 running backs per team, 3 good wide receivers a team, stuff like that. Now you add this element of making the roster even larger and these individual defensive players, so there's more ways you can go wrong setting your lineup, right? Or making these deals and these trades and stuff. So it just makes you refine those skills just a little more as a team owner there too.
It does. And we've all had those weeks where our offense craps the bed. Kind of gives you a little bit of cushion.
Yep.
It's a little bit more forgiving when you have a whole other half of your roster that can help you out, with those defensive players on there. If your offense has a bad week, it happens.
I agree. And you mentioned one of the best parts of it being trading, but the other best part of it is it makes your draft longer. True. You get the draft for longer. Who doesn't love that?
And that's again where that that skill gap comes in, is knowing how to draft, when to draft these players. And again, that's going to depend on how your league is set up. So yeah, that's just another way that skill gap enters there to differentiate between teams in your league.
Yeah, I think people are very intimidated by it. But I was, the first year I ever played IDP, I was like, oh, here we go. But I think in Dynasty, it's the only way to go. Yeah. And once you kind of get into it and you start paying attention, you can easily find out, just like when you started playing in the first place, you had to start paying attention to offensive players you didn't know about. Now you're just doing the same thing. You're just learning some defensive players. And honestly, it's not that popular of a deal yet. It's not that widespread yet. So a lot of people are just being introduced to it anyway. So you're not really that far behind.
Yeah.
And so, I think you just kind of jump into it. Now, resources for IDP are pretty limited. So that kind of sucks, right? There's not a lot of rankings and things like that for it. Like there are offense. You can find offensive rankings and different advice and stuff anywhere and everywhere. The defensive players, a little bit more tough. You have to search for it a little bit more, but there are some good resources out there that you can find to help you out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I'm kind of hoping with stuff like this, and we have other creators that we worked with before that do IDP. I'm hoping we can kind of help move the fantasy football community in the direction of, let's make it more normal. When you look at offense and their rankings available and things like that, you got standard, half PPR, PPR. That's standard across the board. Like, I feel like if we can start doing that with defense, because again, there are some resources, but they're all different because they're based off different scoring systems.
Yeah, scoring is
So if
wild.
we can make IDP tackle heavy, IDP big play, kind of make that like a industry norm, that would be super helpful. But I think you're right. In Dynasty, this is literally the only way to go that makes any kind of sense. And I'm all about it.
Let's make Dynasty defense great again.